Agni. Mandalam 1, Suktam 14. Rishi, Medhatithi Kanva, Devata, Agni, Vishve Devaha, Chandas, Gayatri. Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 1.
Aiviragne subhogiro visvebhispoma bitaye devebhiryahi yakshita.
Verily, do come, Agni, to activities, to invocations, for soma drinking. Do come with all divinities and do perform sacrifice. Universal inclusiveness and cooperative necessity. Acknowledgements galore has this verse. The first is of universal inclusiveness and cooperative necessity in the working of the immortals representing forces and laws. For any activity to be initiated and executed to its conclusion and becoming the cause of further consequences requires participation of all natural forces and the laws that control the manner of their application and inputs about the status of every other activity in the vicinity or far removed that may unknowingly influence the process of the activity in focus and hence its outcome. The second acknowledgement is about our complete incompetency of being able to influence the process in any manner, because everything involved in making the activity happen is beyond our ken. We ourselves being one of those outlying activity whose status affects the one in focus, and we being oblivious to it as well. We cannot modify one bit of any natural law, a single element of an equation that represent them. We can neither deter, deflect, or derange the cited external influences, nor can we in any manner derail, damage, or deform the consequences of the identified activity. Soma extract, the sap of the plant, is a symbol of that swaying influence that considers all variables involved and effective at a given moment that powers the activity towards its denouement. Witnessing and acknowledging it in wonderment is what is granted to us, or perhaps that too is preordained.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 2.
Atpakanva ahushata granti viprate dhiyaha devebhiragnaagahi.
The intelligent call you, wise seer, they verily proclaim knowledge. Agni, do verily come with divinities. Immortals, the spontaneous cognoscenti. The word kanva translates as intelligent. Every individual is a fine-tuned combination of the five principles and three qualities, tattva and guna. The combination being determined fully neither by the individual's progenitors nor the individual. It may be attempted to attribute any proclivity of an individual to that mundane hereditary and behavioral combination tagged as nature and nurture. But life is an attestant to the contrary in ample proportions. The only determinant for intelligence can be the composite effect of the natural or dharmic and karmic laws. It is then, perhaps, preordained that some individuals are granted the ability to become cognizant of the ways of truth. Thus, the intelligent are endowed to witness, understand, acknowledge, and proclaim the propensities of the personified immortals to their less endowed brethren in a deliberated manner. The immortals then can be considered to be spontaneous cognoscenti or ever-aware truth collectives, differentiated as the five principles, the three qualities, and the pantheon of immortals, representing natural laws, to orchestrate this grand spectacle that we term existence.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 3.
इन्द्रवायो बृहस्पतिम् मित्राग्निम् पूषणम् भगम् आदित्यान् मारुतम् गणम्
Indra, Vayu, Brihaspati, Mitra, Agni, Pushan, Bhaga, the Adityas, the Marut host. Brihaspati and the barycenter of the solar system. This is the first part of a two-verse combined, making up a complete sentence. Many divinities or natural forces that constitute, activate, and regulate any system environment of this fractal universe are listed as predicate objects here. Except for Brihaspati, Pushan, Bhaga, and the Adityas, the others have been discussed in the earlier collectives. Brihaspati or Jupiter plays an important role in determining the barycenter of the solar system, about which all bodies of the system, including the Sun, orbit. It is a point just about the Sun's surface. This apparent shift of the axis of orbit from the ideal position of the Sun's center is caused by the massiveness of Jupiter and its resultant and relatively massive gravitational pull. This surely calls for a special status for Jupiter in the organizational hierarchy of the system. So is he granted the status of the preceptor of gods, who has a say on the orbital paths of all heavenly bodies in the system, and hence their mutual gravitational synergies. Pushan, Bhaga, and the Adityas are different functional facets of the Sun. From an Earth-centric viewpoint, they are the representations of the Sun in various operative roles, with the pairs of equinoxes and solstices as references. Rigvedic thought divides the time span between each of these references in two, resulting in 8 Adityas, namely Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Daksha, Bhaga, Amsha, Savitra, and Martanda. Later texts divide the cited time span between the references in 3, with sequent Adityas numbering 12. They probably correspond to the later division of an Earth year into 12 months. Ego, Being represented by the sun, it is the influence of Brihaspati, the preceptor, that makes the seat of ego to be located near the surface of the sun, rather than at its center, making ego less self-centered.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 4.
प्रवोभ्रियन्त इन्दवो मत्सरामादयिष्टवाः जत्सामध्वश्च भूषदाः.
To all of you, bright drops of soma are brought upon, insatiatedly intoxicating drops of honey sitting in vessels. Thought holding mind and honey holding vessels. The act of bringing bright drops of soba to the gods, representing projection of illumination upon all the named personifications of immortals, is akin to holding up a lamp to their mind-constructed images that highlight their functions and the laws that govern those functions, for the recipients of their grace to comprehend, rejoice, and celebrate. Perhaps this is the spirit behind the ceremonial adoration of a deity at the end of any ritual referred to as arati. The soma oblation is also equated to the sweetness of honey to describe the bliss induced in both bestowers and the bequeathed. The bestowers, being spontaneous cognoscenti, revel in their multifarious acts of bestowal and experience bliss in their respective incessant pursuits. The bequeathed take pleasure in understanding the complex but cogent, consistent, and compelling manner that the universe works and experience a surge of euphoric ecstasy. The term intoxication describes the states of both groups because the former cannot hold back their longing for doing what they are mandated to do, while the latter are never appeased with what is continually granted, both being symptoms of inebriation. A formal, ritualistic Vedic sacrifice, then, is a role play of universal processes, and our mind constructs or mental representations of its characteristics devised for the purpose of understanding how life works. The vessels where the bright soma extracts are stored is our mind that stages this entire play. When willingly and thoughtfully performed, it surely leads mortals to a state of bliss.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 5.
ईळते त्वामवस्य वः कण्वासो वृत्तबर्हिषः हविष्मन्तो अलङ्कृताः.
Favor-seeking talented implore you, who spread out kusha grass, offerers of oblation, alert to respond to a purpose. The script of life, an ordainment to exist. If immortals can be swayed by imploration, enthusiastic favor-seeking with fancied offerings and approbatory aphorisms, then they may have to compromise on their implicit but undeclared oath to operate by the laws of truth and the decree of their Creator. So, The use of such words is essentially meant to set a pleasant and entertaining narrative and script for the role play, composed by the intelligent and talented mentioned in an earlier verse of this collective, to describe and comprehend the universal enterprise. The purificatory potential of kusha or darbha grass in the functional realm of humans has been discussed in an earlier collective. Spreading out the grass as seats for the invited immortals to the sacrifice is another symbolic gesture in the enacted role play to emphasize the purity of thought and action in the personified immortals, which again underscores their total adherence to natural laws and their unimpeachable ethicality. It also indicates the strong possibility that everything, from the action of immortals to the advent of the intelligent to their script writing and enacting the role play, is perhaps all ordained. The purpose that the intelligent and talented respond to in earnest is to make beings of their species cognizant of the scheme of life and share the ecstasy that they themselves experience with others. If the role play were to be ordained, then this purpose and everything that is associated with it must be too.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 6.
धृतवृत्तामनो युजो ये त्वावहन्ति वह्नायः आदेवान् सोमवीतये.
Smoothened with clarified butter, yoked in mind, carriers who carry you, divinities, for soma drinking. The double hex of symbolism and practicality. Every step, every gesture, every utterance, and every ingredient and object used in a sacrificial ritual has both a symbolic and a practical function. Clarified butter, particularly made from cow's milk, has this smooth texture that makes it slip past the tongue into the gullet and onwards, leaving a lingering pleasantness in the palate. This manner of lucidity, clarity, and pleasantness of thought flow in understanding the ambulation of existence is the symbolism expressed in this verse. The fumes of the clarified butter, along with other ingredients of the sacrificial offerings, are said to have healing attributes for all life forms, which provides them with the impetus to physically negotiate the ambulation of existence with lucidity, clarity, and pleasantness. When such transparently austere thought control or yoke the mind, one tends to shed distinctions between the giver and receiver of oblations, between the oblation, the one who oblates, and the one to whom the oblation is made, between mortals and immortals. The only thing that remains is pervading consciousness, where all merge, even if fleetingly, in our mortal minds, which is sufficient to provide everlasting peace and bliss. The symbolic sacrificial ritual, mimicking a real-world process, is designed to be a benign double spell upon the living to make both the ritual and the process worthwhile for all concerned.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 7.
तान्यजत्रामृतामृभोऽग्ने पत्नीमतस्पृधि मध्वस्तु जिह्ववायज
Agni, having good tongue, do make those having consorts masters of sacrifice, that enhance truth, do make them to drink of honey. Divine traits and prosopopial indulgence. Truth is enhanced when it is extensively, comprehensively, unreservedly, and successfully applied. It is akin to a vague notion transforming into a definite conviction by its repeated and fruitful pertinence. What was figuratively stowed away in some obscure corner of our consciousness permeates its entire expanse. The divinities excel in this manner of behavior, which qualifies such conduct as a sacrifice with neither any discreet design nor any clandestine conception, and therefore are the divinities masters of sacrifice. Agni has this unique ability to completely transform a substance upon which it acts. The epithet sujihva, one having a good tongue, suggests superior digestive and assimilative abilities. Agni's assimilative competency that suggests inclusiveness, which is identified as a feminine quality, prompts a like personification named Swaha, associating it as the wife of Agni. Similar inclusive qualities of all other natural forces or divinities are likewise subject to such prosopopial indulgence, keeping with the human propensity of considering married men, particularly when accompanied by their wives, to be more reasonable in their dealings. It tends to imagine male divinities to be less frightening, less imposing, less intimidating when with their consorts, even though the representatives of the full-blown versions of the cited attributes, they certainly are not.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 8.
ये यजत्राजयीभ्यास्ते ते पिबन्तु जिह्मया मधोरग्ने वषकृति.
Those who are masters of sacrifice, those who are the benevolent ones, Agni, let them drink honey by tongue, exclaiming Vashat. Utility of the ideal in understanding the real. Agni, the assimilator, is also recognized for his promptness. He goes about his work without any preamble and is thorough in its execution in quick time. Perhaps the exclamatory impulsion, Vashat, that is uttered along with the pouring of an offering into the altar fire is identical to the bellow of bottoms up that one may confront at a bar sport arena to decide the fastest gulper of liquor. This trait being compellingly masculine, it has not been personified separately as Agni himself is of that gender. Having two males in any domain of activity only promotes unhealthy rivalry that would impinge upon work quality. The suggestion that other divinities drink the honey like Soma with Agni's tongue is not a frivolous comment. Energy powers all activities, and all divinities act. Therefore, there must be a facet or a trait of Agni in every divinity, perhaps expressed in a different manner. Differentiation of natural forces according to distinctly demarcated traits is an ideal. The real is different. All divinities display each other's traits in disparate proportions, depending on the activities they specialize in. Ideals do have a utility, however. They make understanding the real more manageable.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 9.
आगीम् सूर्यस्य रोचनात् विश्वान् देवान् कोषर्बुधाः विप्रोः देहवक्षति.
From luminescence of Surya, priest presenting the oblation, wise seer, conducts here all divinities expanding with dawn. Circadian rhythm and sacrifice of living. The circadian rhythm of diurnal beings, who are by far much larger in numbers than the nocturnal ones, ensures that activity is at a minimum during the dark hours at any given place, while it is at its peak around midday. Dharma, from the human perspective and as applied to themselves and those of their other diurnal existential kin, is to adopt living practices that makes use of these natural impulsions to maximize their own functional outputs. Going against the flow of nature is not only identified with the contrary, but also recognized to be the cause of diseases of every kind. Pre-dawn is the time that the environment at a place begins to awaken and rapidly expand its potency for activities and get ready to go full steam ahead with the first glimmer of light from the sun upon the horizon. Seers understand this truth, and in the guise of projecting this understanding upon the working of mind-constructed gods, advise the diurnals to follow the practices of the divinities. Interestingly, while most other gods are deemed to become active at dawn and cease to be so after nightfall at a given place, Agni is said to be awake throughout, day and night. This characterization of Agni is perhaps due to the recognition of nocturnal activities of the environment and beings that have adapted to such living conditions. The Agni trait of the sun being luminescence, he, Agni, is seen as the one who conducts divinities to the place at dawn and officiate the sacrifice of diurnal living that is to begin.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 10.
विश्वेभिः सोम्यम् मध्वग्न इन्द्रेण वायुना पिबामित्रस्य धामाभिः.
Withal, Agni, do drink honey resembling Soma, with Indra, with Vayu, by the abode of Mitra. Singularity in diversity. The notion of Agni being a component of all forces is asserted yet again in this verse in the specific context of the atmospheric system that involves the three other personified natural forces: Indra representing the regulatory principle, Mitra representing the sun, and Vayu representing air and ether, the medium of transport of the effects of Indra and Mitra. These three forces perform their tasks with the active and cooperative participation of the Agni component in each of them, while Agni is enabled to express its versatility by the ambience that its co-divinities provide in a similar symbiotic spirit. This pervasive expressiveness of Agni in any given material assemblage, Ang, is the motivation for its name. Its other epithet, Vaishvanara, common to all life with a material body, also conveys a similar perception. It also alludes to the similarity of Agni's expressive characteristics across apparently disparate systems or material assemblages, Ang, beginning with the cosmos, the corporeal clusters from which galaxies, stars, and planetary systems form, the atmospheric system in each of them, the body aggregates in an assortment of sizes and shapes that grow and flourish in its ambience, wherever possible, under supportive conditions, the elemental substances that constitute all matter and permeate it. The understanding of this truth has its impactive reflection upon the framework of the spiritual domain as well, that translates as the recognition of singularity in this seeming diversity. Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 11.
त्वम् होतामनर्हितोऽग्ने यज्ञेषु सीदसि सेमन्नो अध्वरम् यजा.
You, Agni, priest presenting oblation, placed in man, do perform this our unobstructed sacrifice. He sits in offerings. Uninterrupted sacrifices within us. The perception that Agni, or the principle of energy, is the priest, the oblation, and the receiver of offerings has already been expressed and elaborated upon many a time in earlier verses. The phrase, placed in man, may require a little more dwelling upon. The limited consciousness in a life form is the supreme singularity itself. Realizing this truth is the purpose of life. The characteristics of the natural forces and the material world reflecting this notion aid the individual consciousness in its journey towards achievement of this purpose. Here is a snapshot of this reflective experience. Agni resides in every living body as Jatharagni, the digestive faculty of the stomach or gastric fluid. Two other forms of Agni, Bhutagni and Dhatavagni, are also said to reside alongside and are dependent on the first. There are 5 types of Bhutagni, and each type digests its own kind of element in food, corresponding to the 5 material principles: ether, air, energy, water, and earth. Ayurveda further states that there are 7 types of tissues in a material body: rasa, plasma; rakta, blood; mamsa, muscle; meda, fat; asthi, bone; majja, nerve tissue; shukra and arthava, male and female reproductive tissues, which are nourished by Dhatavagni, numbering 7, respectively, from the digested juice of ingested food and excretes the remains. Agni, then, is not only placed in man, but in the body of every living being. So are Indra, Vayu, and all the other divinities. and sacrificial offerings to them happen all the time within us in continuity, which makes these progression of activities to be called unobstructed.
Mandalam 1, Suktam 14, Rik 12.
युक्ष्वाह्यरोषीरथे हरितो देवरोहिताः ताभिर्देवाम् इहावः
Do surely yoke the fresh and healthy red horses in vehicle. God, do carry divinities with them here. Every material body a temple.
It has been mentioned in earlier verse collectives that the two steeds that are yoked to the atmospheric Indra's chariot represent electromagnetic and material vibrations that Indra uses as his communicative faculty in his regulatory duties. But activities of every genre require energy to impel them. Agni, representing the principle of energy, becomes the currency that yokes the diverse components involved in activities and guides them towards successful completion. The Indra and Agni within our bodies too use light and sound from the environment to accomplish a host of unconscious and conscious activities, including the function of determining an external object being a friend or a foe. Also, our respective Indras and Agnis are helped in their task by the entire host of our mind constructed divinities. If a temple is defined as the abode of divinities and hence a place of worship, then so is every material body. If our limited consciousness expands to understand this organizational structure of the material universe and the presence of the Supreme in everything, we have all. We have freedom and no further wants as a bonus. If our consciousness remains stubbornly limited in its cocoon, then we have nothing, live in bondage, and want everything with no means of realizing any as a consequence. Perhaps time decides which it is to be and when.